Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Roaring Agents podcast. Today I'm here with Eric Hagstette. He is the owner of Inhabit Real Estate. He was licensed in 2004. And we had a chance to talk recently, and podcast came up and said, "Hey, what subjects would you like to talk about?" He brought up sales, that he loves sales. And I realized that that is something in real estate that we actually don't talk too much about. We just throw these people in it and they don't really know the process. So I thought this would be a great time to talk to an industry leader about how he does sales. And thanks for joining me, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It's my pleasure. I've always been a fan of your podcast, and I am really happy to be here today.
I appreciate that. So let's start. Where do you get your background in sales and love of real estate?
Oh, well, those are two different questions, actually. But I moved to Portland actually in 1999. And when I arrived in Portland, I had next to nothing on my resume, but I had a degree. I actually have a unique degree in marketing and professional sales from a university in Georgia. And so I came out to Portland with a bare bones resume, but for some reason I thought I deserved some super sexy sales job. And little did I know, it's proof of production in any business, and I didn't have any production. So I took what I could get when I got here, and I interviewed like crazy back in 99, 2000, and ended up working for a New York-based corporate business sales company. And so we were selling business to business services and human resources and payroll and things like that. And so that's where I really learned to cut my teeth, and really the concept behind the concept of the funnel and the pipeline and all of those terms that we use in real estate came to me very clearly back in the early 2000s when I was given these high expectations and high sales quotas from this New York-based company with no excuses allowable.
So that's interesting. You have a marketing degree, because quite often marketing and sales are very much separated. People become good at one or good at the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So you took one and helped.
That's correct.
Other.
Yep, exactly right. So it was a unique degree, and I really loved it. So I do have a natural passion behind marketing anything. I always have. But when I got into real estate, it became very clear that marketing and sales, or marketing and prospecting, are two very different things, but also very integral in building a successful word of mouth business. So yes, they are separate, and we talk about that a lot, about the differences in marketing and prospecting here at Inhabit, because many times agents get them confused, and they do serve different purposes in most cases.
So you came from business to business, B2B. And what I find is that if someone comes, you were selling a service though, right? Or were you selling a product?
I was selling a service.
So I think that one translates a little bit better to real estate. But what I find is people who sell cell phones or cars or whatever, sometimes that transition, they get focused on, I'm selling houses. Mm-hmm. You're selling houses. Did you have any of the trouble of figuring out what you were truly selling in real estate?
That is such a good question. And that, as an owner of a company, I see that all the time when I'm meeting with prospective agents and joining our company or coming into the business. And that's a great question, because the biggest thing I see when I'm having these informational interviews, especially with brand new agents, is they have this, they all say the same thing. I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be in sales. I just want to be in real estate, right? I hear that all the time, and I get that. So for me in the beginning, I always had a true passion and care for the people I serve, right? And so it was never a matter of, it never got mixed up for me what my true purpose was. Housing or real estate is the platform, right? It's the platform for which we earn trust, and we earn our clients, and we accomplish or serve their goals, right? But serving the people is really what I think many of us are in this business for, right? Really helping people accomplish their goals through real estate. So for me, it wasn't hard, but I also know that for many people, those things mix: marketing, sales, prospecting. And so we try and define clear boundaries around which is which and when to use these different tactics, right? So, and one thing I try and really articulate to our real estate agents here is that, yes, I tell this upfront to most people. Real estate sales, residential real estate sales, is a sales business. It's a sales job, no matter how you slice it. However, we're not supposed to be the salespeople that you mentioned, phones, cars. We're never that person in front of our client. When we're in front of our client, we're their ally, we're their supporter, we're their guide, navigator, all those terms that we use. But to get that client, we have to implement sales strategies, right? How do you get the client? And that's when this becomes truly a sales job. It's not when we're with our clients. We're not smooth talking people into buying a house or to
Doesn't
selling a
work.
house. It doesn't work, not at all. So that's very easy for me to delineate those two roles. When I'm with you, my client, I'm just focused on you. And why am I here? What do we need to accomplish? And how do we get there? But to earn your business, I had to get to you, right? So I had to somehow generate consistent activities or produce consistent activities for you to call me to even have that conversation. And so that's where we really differentiate and focus is getting the business, because we're all good with people, right? Most of us, but we got to get them. And so those are the strategies that I really like to talk and clarify for our agents here. Yes, marketing is important, but prospecting and sales activities are different.
So with new agent, how do you usually discuss with them the best ways to start their career, sales or marketing? Where do you have them start?
Oh, that's a good question. Always with a business plan. Well, we have foundational aspects that we always like to focus on. Just everybody talks about the CRM and database and our messaging and what is our why, all of those things that we need to determine and really define before we put ourselves out in such a competitive market, right? And so, but what I really focus on in helping especially brand new agents get started is just as simple as an easy business plan. And within that business plan, we take, like many people do, we take a target, right? We got to shoot for a target. If you aim for nothing, you'll hit it. And so we really want that target first. And so once I am clear on that agent's target, I will then work with them to develop a plan, which is a mix of marketing, sales, prospecting. It's a mix. So I like to think of it metaphorically like a recipe, right? And so, for example, if you and I were working together to create your business plan to accomplish your goals, I would be thinking about, what is Mike's recipe? Mike's recipe is going to be based on things that he likes to do, things that he'll continue to do consistently, and things that he is most comfortable in his own skin when he's face to face with clients. Right? Because I don't want to prescribe a business plan that you hate, you're not going to do it. And if you are doing it, you're not yourself, you're not comfortable, right? So we take this recipe concept and we're like, okay, what are the ingredients for Mike's recipe that's going to get him to X amount of real estate conversations or X amount of goal sales each month or volume or whatever your metrics are. And so I look at you and I say, well, you like these are your personal hobbies and interests. This is your social sphere. These are your talents when it comes to communication. And then we start looking at the ingredients of the recipe, and some of it is marketing, social, it's fun. We have banter here at the company about, is social media posting, is it marketing or is it prospecting? And there's great arguments to both sides. But in my business planning, usually social media posting is more of a marketing outlay, whereas prospecting is different. Prospecting is actually what I like to say is going for the no, right? Going for the rejection. Like the more no's we can get through this, the quicker we get to the yes. And so that's the tough stuff, right? That's the stuff that often makes people uncomfortable. But if you do it correctly, and if you're in your right sphere, and if you're in your right element, prospecting is just having conversations. And most importantly, believing in your value and believing that you have something very valuable to offer your listeners or the person you're speaking with. So to answer your question, our business plans are always very simple. They're always very bite-sized, but to move the needle here, we can't just be creating content for social media. We have to be asking harder, better questions to our audience and really determining how to get what I like to call the at bat, right? So the ability to ask for the business. Now, we all do that differently in our own different styles, but that's critically important. We can be amazing content creators all day long on social media, right? But is that moving your needle? Now, I do have some realtors here that is their platform and they're crushing it just in their outreach, and they have the right recipe and it's fully focused on social, which is awesome. But many times people start struggling with content or consistency or what have you. And that's when we have that conversation. What are we going to do to fill the funnel, have more real estate conversations, and just have the ability to ask for more referrals or ask for the business? I mean, and so that's what we're going for when we're building that plan.
So we met because you had me come in to do a class on the disc.
Mm-hmm.
And that high S is often that one who doesn't want to become salesy, that doesn't want to be pushy or whatever. So one thing you mentioned there is about confidence. Now the high S's are worried about not being, not bothering people, and they want to prove their worth because the last thing a high S can do is let anybody down. How do you build up the confidence of a new agent like that who needs a lot of proof that they're good? How do you instill that in them?
Well, here at Inhabit, I mean, that's my main job and my main goal is to teach confidence, because with all due respect to your listeners and everybody out there, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but we can all sell real estate, right? But like, we can get the job done. And so so for the agents that we hire here, especially the new ones who haven't been around the block, my main focus is injecting confidence. And we do that through a heavy amount of teaching and training and on very relevant topics, even role play, things like that, things that make everybody uncomfortable. But the more we practice, the better we get. So when you're at bat, you have a much better likelihood of succeeding. But to answer your question more specifically, how do I take that person who's afraid of being pushy, afraid of the rejection, and really struggling to put themselves out there? There's a couple of different things I start looking for. I start really focusing on what is that agent's skill set or area of expertise that they can really leverage to build their confidence. And maybe it's a niche market, maybe it's a certain sphere of influence, or maybe it's anything, but I'm really helping them go more granular, because oftentimes those people who don't want to be pushy are kind of a little more, I don't know, forgive me for not knowing on the disc profile, maybe a super high C. I don't remember what the opposite is, but
the D is the opposite.
The D.
D's don't worry about confrontation or knows nearly as much as an S.
Right. But for that S person, I'm really looking to put them in their spot that brings out that confidence. And oftentimes with the S, it's intellectual or data gathering to give them confidence. So we work really hard on that. But long and short of it is, I'll also go on the interview, or I'll go on the appointment with them. I'll model for them, or I'll have them sit with me at a presentation just to show them how simple the concepts are that we're presenting, right? And how confidence takes you such a far way.
Let's say that you're in an open house and a client walks in. You've got them, they're somewhat interested. Let's kind of take them through the sales process of that situation. So what does the sales process look like for you in that?
Well, so we're a big open house. We're a big open house brokerage here. And so we teach and train a lot of that. But for me personally, and I learned this from another huge leader in the industry a long time ago, but for everybody who walks in our open houses, that person is either a buyer or a seller, no matter what, even if they have the force field up, right? And so in my MO personally, Eric, and I'm still a selling owner, so I'm out there in the field. At that point, I really focus on who that person is and why did they come in the door. And I'll almost never lead with a real estate question, right? They're a human to me. They're not an open house attendee. They're not somebody just to fill in my guest list. They're just a person. So I start with connecting with them on a human level. How are you doing? How is your weekend? And then I might dig into some more specifics, like, did you come and see me, or were you just passing by? Or just real gentle questions to get conversations flowing. And then if in fact they are some sort of kind of close term prospect that's going to do something soon, we ask the easy questions. And we actually teach and train on a lot of questions that are very delicate, or excuse me, very sensitive or very soft, but open up a lot of information, right? And so, for example, I could be asking that guest at my open house, well, how are you finding the market today? Or how are you finding the market right now? Are you writing offers? Have you been just really about their experience, not about who they're working with or what their budget is or what they like about this house. I'm just getting a feel for that person and how they're feeling in the real estate market right now. So then if I realize there's an opportunity for agency representation, I may say to them, if they have no agent, what's your status on hiring somebody to bring you through this process? And would you find it helpful to come and have a buyer orientation or a seller orientation, depending on what they are, right? So I'm just not hammering on them. I'm really trying to make them feel comfortable in that conversation by asking poignant, relevant questions. So from there, it's a good question, Mike, because I've always, like back in my corporate days, we were always taught and trained on some rigid things like a verbal agenda. And then also like the art of asking excellent questions, right? So that all came from my corporate training, which I'm very thankful for. And so from there, we just gently move the person through a very comfortable process that then puts them into our office, typically, to where we can go to the next level, ask for the signature if everything feels right on the buyer broker agreement or on the listing agreement, and move forward. And that person at that point, I have a strong feeling they know that we're going to do what we say we're going to do, right? They've probably been, the confidence has been instilled in the client that we're professionals and that we're going to take them through this process and make them comfortable in a very predictable way. I don't know if that answers your question, but for us, it's like the love of serving the people is so amazing. But going back to sales, it's like we are selling to earn income. We're trying to put people into escrow. It's for them, not us, but we do need income. And so while I'm really caring for and listening to my clients, I'm also moving them down the pathway at a pace that they're very comfortable with. And that's the main thing, Mike, is really understanding who you're talking to, where they are, and then serving them in that place. And that's how you build a longer sustainable business, because they may not be ready right now. And then the concept of follow-up kicks in, which is another huge element of sales. The money is in the follow-up.
So much is lost there. So let's go back to that open house. And I missed saying this early on, is you are an owner and a broker. I looked your numbers up. You've done a lot of houses. I don't know how you've sold so much and have such a great large brokerage as you have. Kudos to you. So you know what you're talking about. You're not just sitting in your ivory tower telling people what to do. So I appreciate
that. If you could see this gray hair right here, this is what that's the result. But I love it. I love the business. And I really feel like being a selling owner is very important to the brokerage, because I'm out in the trenches with the crew, right? And I'm feeling the market with them, and I'm understanding, learning, growing. But I also have almost 20 years of background, so I can work with the brokers and help them understand what's going on. So, and I also love my clients. So that's it. It doesn't feel like work to me, but I'm here a lot.
So in the open house, there's lots of opportunities for them to say no. And you said you're going for no. How do you, I know it's case by case, but how do you know when to stop asking questions when someone is not going to connect with you? How do you, and even when you know it's a no, how do you progress beyond that and not just lose this opportunity completely?
Well, good question. And that's one thing we've been working on. It's just a concept I've always been working on here, and especially trying to help our brokers understand that let's ask one more question, right? Can we get one more question in there? Because sometimes that one question is the turning point. And so, of course we have to read people, right? And most of us have a great sense of character, body language, communication. And so when oftentimes the ship has sailed and you're not going to be engaging that person, and that's fine. It's a numbers game. Back to sales. That's what's very important too. This is a numbers game, right? And we can talk about that in a minute. But my point is, the person has given you the real estate force field. I'm just a nosy neighbor, or I have a realtor, or just not really even speaking with you. Let's be honest. Not everybody's going to be your client, and sometimes it's worth asking one additional question, like, "Are you sure you don't want me to come by and just give you a no obligation price opinion on your home?" Or, "I'm happy to. I have a little time after this. Are you sure that wouldn't be helpful?" Or whatever the ask is. So those are the easy questions that I might throw in there in the end. But I also realize that real estate is such a timely and specific thing that maybe it's just not their time, and maybe they're not in a place that day that they want to engage anybody or share any information, and that's cool. And that's part of being a good human. Leave them alone sometimes, right?
So let's talk about follow-up. Fortune is made in the follow-up, and follow-up is where I'd say 80% of agents just do well for whatever reason. I know an agent who he's a big producer, and he was talking to another big producer, and he says, "I don't like talking to my sphere because it's instantaneous enough." He only wanted to call expired listings and for sale by owners because it's that immediate. So I mean, first, he doesn't get a lot of referrals. Two, he's not doing the great follow-up. He's always looking for the next thing. So how do you keep your agents? If it sounds like it's probably more natural for you, how do you tell the agents that fight it that to actually follow through and do the follow-up properly?
Man, we use the stats a lot to reinforce the importance of follow-up. I mean, the stats better than I, and I've lost a little clarity, but I think that a huge portion of sales are procured after the seventh call or something, after the seventh tap or something.
It's supposedly gotten higher. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it has, maybe 11 or something big right now. And so I just constantly hammer on the money's in the follow-up, the money's in the follow-up. And so whether our agents are calling on their sphere of influence or prospecting for new clients, I don't know. It's just something that was ingrained in me. And back in the olden days, I literally had a Rolodex or a tickler file on my desk in this cubicle. And it was like a habit, right? You would just go through it, make the call, make the notes, call me in 6 months, and because if you're prospecting with a little bit of care and caution, you should be able to have some semblance of a conversation with those people. And then the ability to say, well, I understand now is not a good time for you, but would you be okay if I called you back in a couple of quarters just to check in? Most people are going to say yes. It's up to the agent or the prospector to make that note and put it in their CRM and to get the reminder to make that call again. But what's really most important, or very important in these touches, is something that not many people are doing, but asking for a referral. It might not be that person, right? But it's critically important now, with the market compressed as it is, to be asking, who else do you know who may be in the market to buy, sell, and invest? It's not, do you know? Of course, that's a yes or no question. It's who else do you know? Or who else do you know may really appreciate my information or hearing from me? Because like I mentioned earlier, when people communicate with myself, and I'd say the majority of our brokers here, they pretty instantaneously pretty much understand that we're not pushy people. We're professionals. We're leveled up and we're speaking professionally and with care. So we're not necessarily getting that hard rejection or no because of our approach. And then the most important thing too, a little victory. Can we just call you and check in again later in the year? But those are all opportunities to say, oh, by the way, and I hate to quote Buffini, but you can say, oh, by the way, do you know anybody else that might be in the market or curious about selling or curious about their home's value after this massive market change we've had in the last few years? And so that's where I'm really focusing the agents on asking for more referrals, because it's not in a good market. We don't typically do that. And so now the market is compressed. The gimmies, the 30% that went away, which are oftentimes those that drop in our lap, now we need to work for those. We need to ask for them. We need to kick more stones. So we're big on the follow-up here. Our company often produces content for our folks to send out, for our agents to send out, very service oriented, not tied to a transaction contact points, right? So taking our work away from the sales, the close of escrow and the commission check, and spanning it throughout our relationship with the client. And so that feels really good to us because we're serving them far beyond just that sale. You know, we're brainstorming on reimagining home renovation projects, energy efficiency items and improvements, upgrades, you name it. We're bringing the rest of the kind of components of housing consistently back to our clients. So if we're calling on our past clients, that's the kind of service they're getting. If we're calling on new people, we're just trying to get another follow-up if it's not their time.
I like the asking for referrals because everyone, for the most part, influences at least 10 people. And this person is a no right now. It doesn't mean there's not someone in their orbit. And we had a crazy one when I was on the team. We had an agent call someone that actually is just by my house, and it was an expired listing. And they said, no, I think I'm going to take it off the market. And they bumped into someone later that day. And apparently we did so well when we talked to that person. They referred us, not the previous agent, to the So we get a little locked into this person, just talk to this person and get the deal here when there's a lot more opportunities there. And if you treat the person right, and if you do the right things, you're more likely to get more business out of it.
Absolutely.
Perfect
Yeah, because it's like
that.
What I always say in this business, Mike, is like, unfortunately, it's not that hard to look good, right? I'm sorry to say, it's not that hard to rise up, level up, and just kind of like really be a polished professional in our marketplace. And I think a lot of times the client feels that relatively quickly because we are in a day, like in our marketplace, we're in such a telemarketing marketplace where teams, companies, individuals are just hammering on the phones, right? And so I'm not going to comment on that, to each their own, and that creates business obviously for those. But we also know and recognize that sometimes people have their guards up when they're answering calls from realtors, and we have to be delicate with that approach. So kudos to you. And that's happened to us before in the past where we might not have gotten a deal, but we got a referral from the deal. It's a little confusing, but it's rewarding.
Well, we were both at the 1,000-watt event 2 weeks ago, and they have that video that's 10 or more years old, which is probably about when you were starting. And
yes.
Out, and it's about, these people saying, I'm not a lead.
Yeah, don't drip on me or whatever.
Don't drip on me. And, we still call it a lead because that's the vernacular we use, but there is power in words. Calling them leads, you're not taking them in with the same care, I think. And I think it is important of how you are referring to them and how you're going to respond to them. I think that is important.
Absolutely. And also reflecting back on 1,000-watt, also just the simple example of use the word home, not unit. And I don't know if you caught that story, but that was very powerful. And that's something, we're very chosen with the words we use here when we're reaching out to our clients in our sphere. And I couldn't agree more.
We kind of just fall into it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One thing I find with new agents is they just grab anyone they can. And it's almost like seventh grade in that you don't want to ask the person if you're together. You just want to think, they're scared to find out, no, you don't like me. And so they thinks they're showing homes to a client. And all of a sudden they go, well, I have an agent. So then they go to overqualifying. And they want to know where you were born, where your great grandparents were born, because they're not going to have that wasted time again. And they
Social security number, all of it.
Do you see that, or do you train people before it ever becomes an issue?
Well, we train hard on qualifying clients because, and from my perspective, time is our most valuable commodity, and we already waste a lot of time in this business. And that's really hard too. The concept and the question is challenging at the same time because, currently there is less business and people would be more eager to jump if somebody said jump. And then I also understand that like many of our lead like our lead generation systems, especially the warm call handoffs and what have you, are encouraging agents not to qualify people. You know, for example, you get a handoff on a warm lead from one of your lead providers, and you're supposed to pick up the phone and say, of course, I'll show you this house. Meet me there in an hour. You know, a broker in a box. Push the button, get a broker. And so it's a really hard task, but we err on the side of being a little more, I don't want to say conservative, but careful when we're qualifying clients. And that's because we really value our own time, and we know we provide an outstanding service to our clients. And then there's also this safety issue, right? So we want to be very careful when it comes to our personal safety. So it is a more challenging time. And when people want to do something with real estate, I know more than anybody the desire to go out and serve, show a house, maybe write an offer, or list something. But these days we're just, I think it also feels good in this example or question that you asked me. I think it feels good to the consumer or the client when we do qualify them a little bit. And it kind of, again, to overuse the term, it levels everything up and maybe kind of makes everything feel a little more professional, which I think our industry desperately needs.
I think that's very important. One of the things that we trained the agents was, if they want to see the house, we said yes, and I need this information from you. Mm-hmm. At least they got the yes, and they dropped their defenses a little bit, that they're like, okay, they said yes, but then we had to get some more like, oh, you're not qualified and you haven't talked to anybody for a loan, and we need to get you here first, because this isn't blah, blah, blah. But, getting them just, yep, you're going to get what you want, maybe.
Right.
Because it is that professionalism instead of just being an order taker.
Yeah.
Danger in real estate of just being that order taker, showing up, doing this. And you don't have that respect when the time comes that they have to take your opinion or listen to your opinion. You don't have that respect.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. That's why we really like to try and move towards more of an official orientation or consultation with our client, if possible, to kind of solidify how, everybody's needs and wants, operating procedures, all of that stuff. I find it's very important and really builds for better long-term loyalty, respect, and ultimately the relationship accomplishing the goal of serving the client to why they came to you.
Now, you mentioned a buyer broker agreement, which is not very common in the Northwest. Mm-hmm. Is it a standard for your office?
No, it's not a standard. It's just I do my best to protect our brokers and protect their time. And, like being in the business for so long, I've lost my pounds of flesh, and I've lost my time, and I've spent time with people who weren't loyal to me when I should have been with my family or what have you. And so we just practice that type of risk management. And it's really our brokers are 1099s. It's their choice how to conduct their business. But I care about them, and I want them to be successful, and I want their clients to respect them. And I feel like that really makes things feel a little more professional, and it's when the relationship begins in that way.
We had one of our agents who did the flip on the overqualification. He's like, I'm going to do a buyer broker agreement. So we had one for him, and then went through it, worked on it, how to present it and everything. And then got someone into a contract, and they changed where they wanted to look to a completely new area that he didn't want to go to. And he's like, what have I done?
Right. You got to be careful with that contract. It goes both ways.
It does. And then what he found was it helped him set expectations, which he hadn't done in the beginning because he was just jumping. And so if he just went through all the conversation that he was going to have in the buyer broker, he felt more comfortable. And then they both knew it really comes down to expectations. Mm-hmm. And then this where people kind of get, those 11 o'clock calls because they didn't set their expectations and all those other things. So it's interesting if this would ever become a more consistent thing in the Northwest, because I know on the East Coast, everyone does a buyer broker agreement. It's just common. You just
absolutely. Yeah.
It makes sense. But because it's not the norm, it's a little bit harder to say, well, I need you to do this with me. It's like, well, Bill didn't ask for it. Mm-hmm. Ask for it. Why are you asking for it? And it adds another level.
Yep.
For you to do it on all of yours?
No. I mean, we have my book of business, my sales book of business, mostly serving clients who I've served for a long time, and there's no question. One thing I'm seeing, one area of kind of a soft spot with buyer agency in general is the commission, like general commission erosion, right? And so that is one area we've actually had it work for us recently, where we agreed to 2.5 points on the buy side, and then with tight inventory or discounted situations, you bring somebody after working, showing them 20 some odd houses, and then you get to a 2% BAC or something like that. And so we've had it work in our favor with no issues from the buyers, that they make up the difference, or the difference is built into the deal somehow. So I am a huge advocate for commission preservation, because I think us realtors deserve every penny we earn. And so anything I can do to protect that for the brokers is what I'm going to try and do. Definitely. I mean, we have a contract for our sellers, and that's very secure, and that feels good. And think about how much risk there is on the buy side, and why wouldn't we bind that?
I agree. It's just not the norm. So it's just a different pitch.
Well, and excuse me for interrupting, but think about this, Mike. Does the buyer know it's not the norm? Probably not.
Feel like they do. They know so little about real estate, but that one they know. And I don't know.
Well, I find it like it's all in how you pitch it. It's all in how you present it. And if it's made to be a win-win, because if and when I do use the buyer broker agreement, that in my mind, and kind of the mindset of our company, that elevates that client in my book.
Right.
And we're bound. Now, I wouldn't serve them any differently, but it just kind of makes it feel it bumps it up a little bit on my list, that we're both prioritizing each other, and we're going to get after this, and we're committed. So
I agree. It's a powerful thing, and it's a promise for the right agent. There's some agents who just try to lock people in and not do their job, just like that can happen on the listing side. But
of course,
it's a powerful thing for the right agents to be doing that.
Yep, I agree.
Before we run out of time, I do want to talk about luxury.
Okay. Yes.
So a lot of agents are scared to jump up to luxury.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid that, everyone's eating caviar and having their butler drive them, and they're just different people. And people are people. They can have a little bit higher demands, whatever. How should an agent look at that when they try to break into that higher price point? Or how should they not look at it to be afraid of going up there and not being able to serve them?
Oh man, that's a great question, Mike. So one thing that you'll hear from me, and our brokers hear from me is all the time, is what? Don't limit yourself. And that applies to so many different realms within our work, right? Don't limit yourself. You get a listing on a corner. Why aren't you knocking on the 2 neighbors' doors just to notify them? Maybe you could create an assemblage, or whatever it may be. Like, think bigger. You got one listing, great. Go get more, like go big. And so with respect to the luxury piece, oftentimes it's hard to teach and train this, but it's often an easier place to work. It's more sophisticated clients. They've been around the block. It's not their first rodeo. And what many brokers need to realize is that sophisticated buyer often wants simpler service. They trust me, get it done. Here's what you say you're going to do. Here's what you say you're going to charge. Here's your price opinion. I'm in New York, or I'm in Chicago, or I'm elsewhere. Get rid of that asset for me, right? Move it. Now, that's not always the case. You can have highly controlling luxury high-end clients that have huge demands and expectations, but there's no what I would say to answer your question is, brokers who want to play in that park or swim in that pond or whatever you want to say, all you have to do is put yourself there. So if you're a new agent and you're aspiring to break into any niche market, green, residential infill project, luxury, development, any of those things, put yourself in that place. Are you touring luxury properties every week? Are you studying the listings in Lake Oswego and Dunthorpe and the West Hills? Are you aware of what the $2 million house delivers? Are you aware of the essential components that need to be there? It's not rocket science, but these are all things that we can learn through studying the market. So yeah, if you want to go sell big houses, that's cool. But if you're sitting in your office just looking at luxury magazine, that's not going to do it. Are you touring the houses? Are you networking with those players in or out of your company? I think so many times people feel confined to the players only in their company, and we network like crazy all the time with the big hitters because they're fun to network with. They're fun to listen to learn from. And all you see the difference is confidence. They're not stronger, they're not smarter, they're not whatever it is. They have just put themselves in that current of people, right? That's the difference. And it doesn't happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight for Terry or Justin or my partner Patrick or any of these people. It's building relationships, right? And so if you don't have those relationships, maybe you need to put yourself in positions or in environments that you can create those relationships. And that's really where we want to think big, right? We want to earn big. We want to think big. We're limitless, in my opinion. We got the license. What else is restricting me from doing any of these big things? Myself, ourselves, small thinkers, right? And so, and that's why, different subject. That's why a long time ago, I chose to scale my business through new construction and development. And I get that question all the time. I mean, our company is known to have a solid grip on new construction, infill development in the Portland metro area. Well, I said to myself, I earned from my previous corporate career. I had a developer come to me, and that's how I earned my first condominium project, which was 27 units. Homes, wow. Forgive me, 27 homes. And so that's 27 homes on one corner, one street. So I can go there and I can service that entire bundle versus if I had 27 listings across town. Now, so isn't that efficient? Like, that's a simple concept, right? That's not big thinking. That's smart. That's efficient. And so why aren't agents going big is my question. And we encourage it and we teach it and it's like we're limitless in this. And real estate is fun and it's fun to talk about and it's fun to play in the market here. And so, like I say, go for the niche. In this market, the way we're going, you have to specialize, in my opinion. You have to have something that nobody else can own and nobody else can claim, or very few others. So when that need arises, you're the person they come to. And we can all accomplish that.
I think I talked to someone about this on other podcasts, which was that we're afraid to niche down because we're afraid that we won't get anything outside of that niche. But the thing is, there's a thing called the halo effect. And if you're good at one thing, people assume you're good at something else. So the more that you just focus on a niche and get good and get known, they're like, well, you'll probably be able to do this, because we get that all the time as real estate agents. Well, hey, can you help me buy this building? Can you help me do this that you've never done? Okay. So I get that.
I totally get that. And that did happen to me once. And I was a younger realtor and I wasn't really paying attention. And this was back in 29 and 10 in the dark days. And I had some really cool, like ultra modern, ultra green, state of the art architecture and development happening at that time. And I had a lot of it and I was so focused on it because I was so into it that I did start noticing that I wasn't selling bungalows or I wasn't selling ranches or I wasn't selling a fixer, the bread and butter, right? So I did learn from that. Like, you can drill too deep, but let me give you a different way to look at it. Right now, I'm very focused on adding housing inventory to our market, working with a lot of developers, and we have a lot of homes coming out of the ground, right? And so I'm very comfortable in that. Like we said, it's efficient. It's a good way to scale your business. But guess what? I have all this new construction, right? So when Joe and Mary call me to downsize, they want to buy my new construction. Well, they have a house to sell, right? So that's how, another way. It's like, yes, I'm an expert in new construction and infill and development, but the halo effect acts differently in this situation as well, because it brings a lot of ancillary business or secondary business to you as well. And so that's why I say that the brokers out there, there's, I serve on the board of PMAR and I look at these numbers, there's 9,000 of us running around out there. And we're not really adding enough inventory to the pie, right? It's kind of what we call a zero-sum game. So some people win, but then there's a proportionate loss for those who can't play, right? And that's a concept of affordability. It's a concept of competition and market share. And so I say to the brokers, keep studying, always be learning, find something that makes you unique and different, and then leverage that and share that. And that will bring about the confidence that we've been talking about. I can't say that enough. And then, of course, going back to sales, and I know I've been rambling, it's all about the numbers game. And I hear it all the time. I interview people, they come in, they've got their license in their hand, and they're like, here we go. I want to sell real estate. I went through the process as a buyer, and then I got my license because it was really fun. God bless them. I love that. But I don't want to be a salesperson. Oh, cool. I get that. And what I say to them, are you already a salesperson? Are you already pushy? No. Well, why are you going to become pushy just because you have a real estate license? You're
Exactly.
not. It's not who you are. So don't worry about that. And then I ask them, how much real estate do you want to sell? What are you shooting for? And with all due respect, about 8 out of 10 say, I want to sell one house a month. Very predictable answer. I say, okay, well, how are you going to get that one house a month? How are you going to close that? And they're like, well, and then I have to help them understand that this person who doesn't even have a clue, we haven't even talked about the ratios and the calls, the appointments, the closing, all the analytics of that, because it's really, you can get in the weeds there. But I have to remind people more than I think I should. If you're going to want to close one, you got to have about 4 on the active burner list, right? Is it real estate? People can wake up emotionally changed, financially changed, whatever it may be. And so that's where I really try and help our agents, and in general, help agents know that that's running the numbers. You got to throw a lot against the wall because not much of it's going to stick. And so those are the things we practice here. It's just the activity, and being consistent about it. So that's a little bit about how we approach sales.
I had an agent that was newer on the team, and he was all excited. He goes, I got 12 A buyers. I was like, no, you don't. I said, because I'd known at least how he got them and all these things. I was like, almost all those are going to be gone within a month. They're not going to be responding. And he was a little mad. I was probably a little too short with this. And then 2 months later, he's like, they're all gone. I was like, yeah, because of this and this. But, that weird thing that we can get trapped in and that relax. I got so many, I can relax. No, you can't, especially when you're new.
No. And that's really what we're trying to teach and train here, is how to smooth out the roller coaster of real estate, the income roller coaster, the highs and the lows. Consistency smooths out those bumps and helps you realize when you're on the highs, you got to keep plugging. That's the biggest thing I see. Oh my God, I got all these closings this month and they're in Hawaii. I get that you deserve to take a break, but that's when you throw more against the wall. When you're on that high is when you throw more activity into the fire. You're confident, you're successful. People feel that when they talk to you. And then that's when you're very magnetic. And that's very important.
Any last words on agents getting better with sales, or any last words of wisdom?
I'll simplify it all again and say what I've been saying. Having a solid business plan, and these aren't business plans that, we don't reinvent the wheel. Real estate, there are certain activities that are proven to work. And so, that's such an important place to start, with a solid plan that you really can get into and geek out on and follow and build and adapt. But the other thing is just for our agents to remind themselves that they can go anywhere in this business that they want, but it does require discipline and it requires consistency. But the sky is the limit. And that's why we're in this business, to serve the people, to have our schedule, to have unlimited income potential. And so all of that plays into this. And it's really so easy, the simplistic model of taking proven activities on a consistent basis and trusting that the results will come. And that's very hard because we're short-term minded these days. We want the results now. You got to trust your mentor, your broker, your owner, your team lead. The result, you got to trust, right, that the results will come. So that's what I got for you.
Well, hey, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for joining me. If someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
inhabitre.com under our agents page. Easy to find me there. Google my name, which is even easier. Stop in our office. We have an office at 3121 Southeast Division and one at 937 Northwest Gleason in the Pearl. Pop in. We're storefront retail. We welcome visitors, whether you work here, don't work here. We love networking. We're brokers. We serve at the industry level because we care so deeply about our work and all that the impact that our work has on everybody, not just our clients. So come see us, give us a call, brainstorm with us. If you have anything that you don't know what to do with, or your broker isn't familiar with, whether it be residential infill project, luxury, whatever it is, give us a call. We are more than happy to share information.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll do this again.
Thanks, Mike. It's been a treat, and I really appreciate you having me and listening to me.
Thanks, Eric.